most ideas are 6 feet under, because it means that you die not knowing what you have in you, because you didn't get a chance to get someone who's gonna teach you or guide you or show you the other space of life of what you're doing. You see, so it's very important. It's very, very important to have a mentor, and it's very important to connect with people so that you can find yourself.
That makes sense. Beloveds, welcome back to the Living Consciously podcast with me, Yvette Ratshikhopha, also known as Yvette Alu on digital platforms. Today, I have two really cool guests that I'll be speaking to, and I'm also really excited because they're men, right? We've never had any male guests on this podcast, and it's been something that I really decided I want to be intentional about. So I've got two guests who are cool, and they're also males. I'm happy to have some masculine energy on the podcast because we need that perspective, right? We need to talk about healing and growth and anything really, just from a male's perspective, to bring that balance. So I'm going to introduce you to my guests. I've got Denzil from Denzils and Jo. He's the co-owner of Denzils and Jo. And I've also got Elliot over here, Elliot Sithole, whose artwork I'm wearing. I don't know if I can show you guys.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it. I'm doing too much, but I just want you guys to see it.
Yeah.
But this is the shirt that I got from Elliot, and he's an artist. I've known Elliot for a few years, actually, from back in the day when we were hustling entrepreneurs, just starting off the ground. And I think, Denzil, I met you... When did we meet? It was that event.
That event you did with
that
books.
I hosted.
The one you hosted. Yeah, just right next to my gallery. I remember very well. Yeah.
That was a really cool event. So I'll give you the context of that. So today we're talking about art, as you can see. The guys that I have are in the art space. Denzil owns an art gallery, or co-owns an art gallery. And Elliot is an artist in all different forms. When I met him, he was a graphic designer. Then boom, I see him at an event. He's an artist. Hi, bro. So I'm really excited for this conversation. Welcome, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you for having us.
Thank you for coming and honoring the appointment. I'm excited for this interview specifically, and also the conversations we're going to have. So the context behind that event.
Yes.
That I had at, it was at, what's the...
27 boxes.
27 boxes in Melville. That's where your art gallery is based. And I have a book called Living Consciously. And what happened is I actually... So I published the book. And then during the pandemic, I realized that I hadn't expressed my creative self much. So I felt really, because I'm a creative, like how I started writing is that I started writing poetry when I was, songs when I was 9 years old.
Sure.
And then as I got older, I'm very creative. I can't draw. I'm not that type of creative. Right? I also believe that we're all creative beings. So when I could see that there's a part of me that's missing that I haven't expressed in a long time, I decided to meet the need. And I thought, if I'm feeling this way, if I feel like I haven't seen people in a while, I just need something fun, light. I do a lot of intense work around healing. And that's when I decided, let me do this event. I saw, there's an art gallery. Yeah. My book is sold here. Let's do an event. So on that evening, we actually had poetry.
Yeah.
There were a few, like 4 poets or something like that. We had the bookstore, which was open, which actually is Black female owned, and they hold a lot of books by local authors. And then we also had the art gallery, which is owned by Denzil and Jo. So that was really, really beautiful. Like, it was a nice evening, light, a lot of fun. So that's the context behind that, which is why also I have you guys here, because I think talking about creativity is important, and talking about mental health, healing, and growth in terms of that. So maybe tell me, how did you guys get into what you're doing now? I'll start with you, Elliot. How did you get into doing this artwork that you're doing? Is it something you've always been doing?
Yeah, I'd say art has been part of me since I was born. I've been drawing since I was 4 years, when I was in preschool. So it was my passion. Like my uncle used to push me so hard to do it. Like he loved art. He still loves art. So it wasn't something I thought I was gonna be until when I was 10. I used to watch a lot of documentaries, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, the old school guys.
So you're an artist.
Yes, I'm an artist, like artist. So it was something that was just in me. So I had to push it very, very hard. But then there was a time I saw that the time art wasn't big here in South Africa. You know, as Black people, we were not privileged enough to express ourselves internationally or wherever. You know, so that time it wasn't easy for me to show off my art. So I thought, it's not gonna go anywhere. Let me just find something or study something that's gonna make me get a day-to-day bread or whatever. So yeah, so I've been an artist since then.
Oh, wow. So it started when you were 4.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. I think, does your uncle get royalties now that
Yeah, he does. He does.
now that you're pushing art?
Whenever I paint, I have to paint one for him.
Really?
Have it. So yeah, I think he has like 10 paintings of mine. Some of them are just parked in the garage.
That's really amazing. I like that. That speaks also into mentorship and guidance, like just as a male in general, right?
Yeah,
How much that probably boosted your confidence,
Yeah.
exposure to books like that. Because I doubt were you the one that went and got the books, or how did you get those books like Leonardo da Vinci, etc.?
So, my uncle is such a love of art. Like, I don't know.
Sure.
So he used to buy me books. He used to buy me drawing books. He used to make sure I go to I attend competitions and stuff. So he would go further for me to have more knowledge about art. You see, so yeah, he was the one who used to buy everything for me. Even at school, when I was at school, I wanted to do teaching. I was like, no. This is who you are.
Sure.
So he pushed me to that, and at school I did fine arts and graphic design. So the reason for me doing graphic design and animation is because I was inspired by William Kendrick. So William Kendrick was a professor in Yvette School of Arts. So he was a lawyer, and then he became a fine artist. And then when he became a fine artist, he was sort of like a charcoalist. He used charcoal a lot. So his drawings were more motions. So I wanted to see my paintings doing the same thing. So that's when I started animation, just to know how to animate and see my work talking or whatever portraits that I do talking. So I'm about to do that.
I love how you've integrated, like, this is something that people also struggle with in art, monetizing it, turning it into something that's relevant to people. And how do I monetize it? But if you express it, and also expressing it in different forms allows you to also monetize that, or to diversify. I think that's the word I'm looking for. So, for example, you do graphic design, then you make these lovely paintings which are behind you. If you guys can see them, those are both made by Elliot. And then also now you're looking into animation. So that speaks of the broad spectrum that it is. And there's actually, it gives you diversification in terms of when you're building your career. For example, if there's an animation thing, you can come in and say, hey, this is what I can do. And maybe you can draw the actual, pictures and then make the move. And then that's a movie. So I love that, Elliot. Thank you for sharing that. And also just remember to subscribe if you're liking what you're hearing. And also, wherever you're listening to this, subscribe. Denzil, how did you get into art?
Mine is quite opposite from how Elliot has gone into the arts. It's a beautiful story of my brother, actually. He's an artist. I've seen him all of my life. He was never a socialite like I was. So whenever we go to play, he would be disappearing under the bed and be drawing all of his childhood. He was just an artist, basically. He carved, wood in the villages. He did all sorts of things. And that's how I was introduced into the world of art. Fast forwarding me coming to Joburg and where I am currently right now is actually seeing his journey and how artists have been exploited in the industry. And that really broke my heart. And actually having to see him forgo being an artist, a full-time artist, in going back to being a teacher, exactly how Elliot thought about his life. So that really broke my heart. And he moved from just being a visual artist into a songwriter, into just an artist in general. And when he was touring, I used to manage him. So that's when I started being behind the scenes of artists, kind of like being the structure behind the creatives. And where I am right now is literally with the passion I have for artists themselves coming from my brother. I founded Denzils and Jo in the midst of the pandemic. It was a long time coming because me and Joe, I know you remember Joe. Me and Joe actually, yeah. I used to have a cafe in Maboneng, 2019. And I used to have some of his artwork on the walls, and we were planning to have an exhibition in the cafe. And the pandemic hit, and I closed the gallery, the coffee shop / gallery. And then, in the midst of the pandemic, we opened up Denzils and Jo. The main focus was to literally protect and foster African art and history, and how people produce work needs to be protected. So we open up that in that focus to see everybody in the African diaspora, everybody in South Africa who's an artist. I didn't want them to go through what my brother went through. And during the opening, he came as well to come and see. And this is literally what he inspired in my life, seeing him go through the journey of being an artist. I get a lot of questions. People ask me, "Are you an artist yourself?" Like, no, nowhere near it. I'm not an artist. Because of that, because I've grew up with him and he's been my best friend since I was young. I have special love for art. Yeah, it really holds a very, very special place in my heart. I don't really like talking about how I got into the art industry, but yeah, it gets me very, very emotional. But literally, that's how I got into the arts. And I wish he had what Elliot had, an uncle who pushed him to that extent, or the knowledge around him. I believe he's still the best talented guy I know currently. I find that a lot. And when I went into the industry, I found that it's not only my brother, it's a whole lot of people.
And I want to actually touch on that point that you just mentioned, because that's something that, as you both were speaking, right? You guys, both of you going into the space of art is based on influence, right? Influence from your brother, observing his experience and seeing how you can do it better, right? Which is actually a business thing, find a problem, solve it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be part of the solution. And Elliot, influence from your uncle. How would you say it's important for men, and also specifically for Black men, to have positive influence, like a mentor, a guide? How would you say, how important do you think that is?
It's very important, super important, because imagine if I didn't have my uncle around me, I wouldn't be, know that I have a talent, and the talent can take me far. So I remember I was teaching, I think it was 2021, I was teaching in Soweto, and I was teaching a group of young women and old women. So, they were doing fashion. They didn't understand what they have, until I came into the space and I started talking to them, started teaching them. And this one lady came to me, was like, Elliot, I just got a job because now I know how to design. I know how to design a dress. I know how to sell my business. So thinking that if you don't have a mentor as a person or as a young man, it's like not having an advice, or you're in a dark space. That's why there was this one guy said to me, the most ideas are 6 feet under, because it means that everyone, you die not knowing what you have in you, because you didn't get a chance to get someone who's gonna teach you or guide you or show you the other space of life of what you're doing, you see. So it's very important. It's very, very important to have a mentor, and it's very important to connect with people so that you can find yourself.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Denzil, we've
Yeah.
had some conversations.
I was about to say,
and he was
yeah.
actually giving me tips. So Denzil, how, especially when you're in the art space, right?
Sure.
Being able to network and connect with people and being able to recognize when somebody can bring your ideas from 6 feet under is very important.
Absolutely.
How do you go about that?
Look, it's a few ways to go about this, and I always say it's very important to understand that what you know currently, there's somebody who knows 10 times what you know, and it's identifying those spaces and who actually knows, what about you. And for me, it's the business I'm in. I'm in the business of knowing people, for example, and we've got a couple of tools which we kind of like learn and know. And that's why when we met with Elliot, I was like, I know about Elliot, and I know of, even the marks which he didn't bring for you. You're supposed to put your mark here with his artwork. But you know what I mean? Next time. Yeah. But I'm in the business of knowing people and bringing it back a bit about mentorship with especially black men. It's very important. Where I am currently, it is because I have men who actually carved the path which I walked. And, people who could actually shine the light on the path which you're going to walk. It's very important because we think we know, but we don't know as much as we're supposed to know. And small knowledge is dangerous. The thinking that I know, it's very dangerous. So in the path which you walk, as an individual, I always say, look at where you want to go. Look at the people who have walked the path currently. It's very important to go to them and like, guys, I need to know. I want advice. I wanna open up a podcast like you. Where do I start? You know what I mean? That curves your path very, very, very significantly. So I always say to people, it's very important to approach people, understand your weaknesses, understand that everyone has weaknesses, and identify them. Tell people, cry out. So it's very important that you cry out where you don't understand, where you need to know, reach out to people. There's this notion that people will never help. People will never say anything, but which is a misconception of especially Ubuntu. I find that in the space I'm in when I interact with people, the more you ask, the more people are willing to help. You know what I mean? We have this thing like, if I tell them, they'll never do this. But what you find is the more you talk to people, the more actually they give you. They're willing to give.
Do you find that a lot of times with a lot of men, there's a struggle to ask for help because you're supposed to know? Yeah.
Absolutely. We have this thing that you're a man. You know what I mean? Any form of weakness seems to be less of a man you are. You know what I mean? You're not supposed to cry, ask for help. That's why guys drive around with a car, even they are lost, phone are dead. They never, just stop and ask, it will save you so much time. You know what I mean? Just stop there and like, yo, hello, how are you? I'm lost, my phone is off. You know what I mean? It will save you so much time. So you find that a lot. There's so much pressure around men for that reason. And you also find it, especially in the art industry as well, that people don't even come around. You know what I mean? So I remember when I actually opened the gallery, I remember I was still painting the gallery. I went to a couple of artists which were my friends who used to come to the cafe. We went around, and I remember I went to Vets, I went to Victoria Yards, I went to a couple of places. People I know, they'll enjoy my coffee in the first place. People are like, guys, do you mind consulting in the gallery? Come in, let's talk about the lights we're going to use. Let's talk about the flooring we're going to use. Let's talk about this. For people who have walked into the gallery, actually, it's an influence of Johannesburg artists. It's not even just an influence of Denzil. We didn't sit around in an office somewhere and design it. We actually had artists walk in and like, I think this type of light would work. I think this type of flow would work. I think this, you know what I mean? So the more you talk to people, the more you get, you know what I mean? And it's not even about trying to exploit or anything like that, but it's just literally just talking to human beings.
Tell me, I think I hear you what you're saying, which is that you have resources around you. A lot of times you don't see people as resources, right? Which speaks into mentorship, which speaks into, some people will say, I don't know anyone. Do you know someone that knows someone? I don't have the skills. Your friends don't have to have all the skills. Maybe it's just, they just know about lighting, you know, for certain things. And it doesn't, sometimes you lose nothing from just reaching out and speaking to a person and asking them those questions. And I guess it's also that fear of rejection a lot of times, right? Elliot, I'm wondering, with your art, were you worried about how people will receive your work?
So here's the story. So after I graduated from animation design, I stopped for a while not painting because of thinking that, okay, the art industry is not well taken serious in our country. So during the pandemic, that's when I was like, flip, I'm home. There's nothing I can do. So I had like a board, big one. Like, let me just do a painting, you know. After how many years? 6 years, 7 years. So me and Joe, we used to paint a lot. So Joe stopped. I carried on. So on that day, I was like, let me just do something, a portrait. I was just testing. Started painting. And then I posted on my Instagram.
Response.
On Twitter, I think I was on 200. In about 2 weeks, I was like 700. You know, people started responding. That's when I saw that, you know what, there's power in social media. You know, there's a way for me to grow this thing. Let me just take it serious. Just with that painting alone, I had 2 people requesting for my work to come and exhibit. You know, so I was like, what? You know what?
Amazing.
Yeah. So all this time, I didn't tell my uncle, like, I stopped painting. So when he saw that I was doing an exhibition, he was so happy. And then, that's when I found out that, you know what, there's good response out there. There's people who are waiting for your work. You just need to start and push.
I need you to say that again. Because I think some people might need to hear that.
Yeah. So I'm saying there's people waiting for your work. There's people waiting for you to start. So the only thing that you need to do is just to push. Because the more you telling yourself, Gucci, what if, the what if is going to kill you. So just take that brush or take that computer and start working, you know. So, if it wasn't for pandemic, I don't know.
So both of you actually started pretty much around the pandemic. So the pandemic, because I remember when I'd post, because my mind, I'm a solutions-oriented person, so I never like to feel stuck. So when I was like, okay, what's the opportunity in this, right? I remember I also had just published my book or released it or working on it. I was about to publish it, and then pandemic. I was supposed to launch it, actually. And then I was like, but I was planning a launch face-to-face, and I was like, no, man, I can do a digital launch, and it's cheaper, and I don't have to pay for people. All I did was use Facebook, did a Facebook Live, cost me less, still got the awareness, reached the same outcome. So I really like what you're saying about just getting started. For you, Denzil, is it the same thing?
Yeah,
just start and the
absolutely. Like I think that's just basically my philosophy. Nothing is ever perfect. The first song is important. You know, the first dish which you cook is important. You know what I mean? The first invention is important. You know, that's the stepping stone to what you're supposed to be doing. In the industry I'm in, I mean, like when we sat around, we're actually going to bring the same concept which we had in Mawoneng. So Joe used to stay farming from Mawoneng, but he used to love the coffee and the sandwiches which I used to do. He was the number one client, basically. But when the pandemic hit, our first conversation actually on Facebook was, because we were never friends before that. He was just a client, and I had a coffee shop. But during the pandemic, he inboxed me on Facebook funny enough. And we had coffee in Bryanston. We're sitting around like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, what's going to happen to the plans which we had before the pandemic? We were supposed to do his photography exhibition. What's going to happen to that? Like, do you still have the cafe? No, I've closed the cafe. So what's going to happen? Are we looking for another place? It's like, yeah, let's look for another place. Let's do the exhibition and see how it goes. Fast forwarding, we found the location, 27 boxes, and yeah, we started. For people who came in our first opening would know, I mean, the hanging system, the lighting system, the flooring, it was a whole different if you look at the pictures, it's quite different, but the idea is start. Like, everything else will improve as you go, right? Luckily, everybody has a skill which they can employ in whatever they want to do. So if you were a teacher before and you used to mark books, by the time you open up your first business or you open up something, you do performance appraisals. You know the system, right? So everybody has a skill which they can employ in whatever they're doing. So we had skills which we had prior, and that was owning businesses. And when we opened up that one, we literally just hit the ground running. And then everything else followed. So I agree with Elliot. Just start. Don't have to think about it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And everybody's waiting for that product. He's right. Because when we opened, everybody was just like, oh, finally, we have a gallery in Melville. You know what I mean? So we had some, they closed down. But thank guys for coming back. Yeah, but so
there is a book by, I think it's Elizabeth Gilbert, the Eat, Pray, Love lady. Most men don't, you know. Mm-hmm. But maybe you guys. But she has a book
don't judge us. We might have read it.
Maybe you watched the movie. Eat, Pray, Love. Anyway, and you fell asleep.
10 minutes in, yeah.
So there's a book called Big Magic by her, and she talks about, and this is also something that I've always believed, that ideas have a life of their own. They're looking for somebody to a vessel to express them, and that's something that I believe. And whenever I get an idea, I'm like, it's either I act it out or I don't. Otherwise, it's gonna find another vessel. And it's that thing where you think of something, and 5 years later you find someone else doing it, and you're like, shucks,
I thought about this
10 years ago. Yeah. You understand, or 5 years ago, type of thing. And I think that's what it is, where the idea comes and. So many times people are so stuck in self-doubt that they're like, it's just an idea. Let me express it like what you did. You just painted and it you went with the flow and you put your art out there and you got a good response, and you also started the art gallery and without maybe overthinking it too much, obviously planning, but you put yourself out there. And I think it's doing really well. Like, both of you are doing really, really well. And yeah, I think that's why I also wanted you guys to be here on the podcast as well. And I guess my last few questions, I'm squeezing a few questions, is that how do you deal with disappointment when things don't go your way? I know we spoke about starting, but how do you deal with, what's your process of dealing with disappointment?
You know, there's a book that I used to read. I think it was Enzo Ferrari. I don't know if you know Enzo, the Ferrari owner.
Oh, okay.
And the car. So that guy said, sometimes people won't believe. You will think people won't believe in your work, but then you put more effort on it, and you will see. Don't be scared of the results. Because you don't know. Not everyone will like your work. Not everyone will not like your work, So you just need to go, as we said, Biti, just do it, So disappointments, yes, they are there. But to be honest, on my side, I didn't think of them. I thought that, let me just paint, let me do this. And then results were good. And then I've never thought of any disappointment. The only disappointment I got was when I had an exhibition and I thought, because like everyone was excited, and I thought that I was gonna sell, on the same night. Almost all my work. So I didn't sell that night. That night, I think there was an event in Cape Town. That was after COVID. Everything was just opening up. So everyone went to Cape Town. Everyone was in Cape Town. So not a lot of people came that I expected them to come, and I thought they were going to buy at the time. So no one bought anything. I was like, shucks. Okay, let me go to the drawing board. I started posting all my work, all of it.
I think we had a conversation about it because I was like, I haven't seen you. Where are you?
Yeah, you were even surprised, like, you paint.
Yeah.
You know, like, I was like, yeah, I paint. I was like, why I don't see your work? And then that's when going back to social media again, started posting my work. People started seeing my work. I think around September, my work was sold out.
Sure.
This was the last 2 paintings I had. Then this other guy bought it. So my work sold out. I was like, you know what? Everything has its own time. You just need to expect disappointments, but you don't have to take them into your heart and your mind, because it's going to delay you. It's going to delay your process. I was talking to a friend of mine, Pratumi. I was telling him that, you know, there's a friend of ours, very, very cool guy. But for him to move, it takes him time because he's scared to do something, you know. So disappointments are there. Just do it, Nji.
Just do it.
Yeah, just do it.
Denzil, how do you deal with disappointment?
Yeah, I think I would say it's similar. I think when you expect it to happen, right? If you know it's gonna happen, because one of the biggest things, people always live in a bubble and live in an illusion. You know what I mean? So know that it's gonna happen. It's the way of life. Ups and downs happen. You know, car accidents happen. You lose your leg. You lose your mother. You lose your parent. So those things are there. There are setbacks. You understand. There are ways to deal with them. And I think you having a podcast like this where people can actually talk about this, it's other ways where they can actually deal with their losses and their disappointments. So one of the biggest thing is, if you haven't lost a lot, you don't really know how to build up that tough skin. You have to have crocodile skin. It has to. Yeah, that skin has to be so thick, especially in the South African climate, right? So it has to be very thick, where you knock on doors, nobody opens. When they look at the color of your skin and they look away, you know what I mean? So there's a lot. For example, funny story. Won't mention names, but when we're looking for a space, I went into a certain space. They said, no, there's not going to be a space. Joe walked into a certain space. They said the space is available. You understand? So
Joe is
white.
He's white.
Yeah. So
just to put it out.
just to put it out there. So you once you start understanding the climate where you're in, where you operate, how you expect these things to happen, and you don't take them too hard. But those which hit you very hard, I have techniques which I use. I run, I sleep. Yeah, literally just close yourself into a room. You know, switch off phone, switch off everything. You shut off the world and you cry your ass off. Like, you just, excuse the French, but yeah, you cry a lot. You know what I mean? After losing everything, and you wake up and you go again and fight. So the biggest thing is learning to cope with this and having techniques to cope with it. I remember my mom passed away a month before I opened up my cafe. So literally 30 days before I opened up my cafe, before we had the hippie, yes, everybody in, my mom passed away. She was in hospital in Jimiston. So those things are things which kind of like teaches you techniques and way to work, and talk to people as well. Have support system, have a support structure where you're able to say, you know what, I've lost everything. I don't know what to do anymore. You know what I mean? Have a shoulder to cry on. Have mentor, like you said. Those people are very important in your life to say, okay, look, I have this. Now I've got a daughter where whenever I go home, even in the toughest of days, when I go there, she smiles. You know, she starts telling me stories and all is well. But it's very important to know that those disappointments are going to be there and you're going to lose a lot. It's okay to cry. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to do this. It's okay to do that. It's not nice. I'm in the field where I'm not an artist or I'm not a producer of tables and say, okay, I've got this. Literally, There are times where you're sitting there and you're like, you don't know where sales are gonna come from. You don't know what's gonna do. Like you don't have fuel, you don't have rent, you don't have this, you don't have that, you don't have that. Kid is crying, you need to pay for school fees. Those times when they arrive, your support structure is important. And I think we spoke about this last time we were at Charlie's, to say it's very important to have that support structure, to be able to say, okay, guys, rough. I need a shoulder to cry on. You know what I mean? Guys, get around, have coffee, pray, go to whatever spiritual person which you need to talk to, go to therapy even. It's important to go through this, because it's people commit suicide over what we're doing. People don't understand this. Like when I say it's very emotional because I saw my brother go through it. People go through suicidal thoughts because of what in the field which we are in, right? So whether it's either being an artist or being in the creative space, because in South Africa, it's still seen as a luxury goods kind of thing. So it's very important to understand that you need a support structure. You need to have people around you. You know what I mean? So
I think you're bringing in some very good points, Denzil. Just really having things that you lean into, like healthy coping mechanisms that help you, because we have coping mechanisms. Not all of them are healthy. Right? Some people go and spend all their money. Some people go and drink their money. Some people go. So it's good to have healthy coping mechanisms and reach out for that support. I know that it's very difficult, and that's also reach into your community. That's something that I struggle with, right? And I remember when we had that conversation, I was like, okay, I'm gonna build out there. I'm gonna talk more, right? Because I mostly work alone, and it's actually, sometimes you feel like you're in this world and it's just you in this world. Like you feel like sometimes you speak to people, but you don't always feel like they can relate. So I remember when I spoke to Denzil, he was like, oh, this is my journey as well. And I was like, okay. I felt lighter after the conversation. Not that I was, burdening him with other things, but we exchanged some ideas. We spoke about the challenges. And even that helps a big deal. Elliot, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say that, we're all going through stuff. These are hard times. So whatever that you are doing or the idea that you have, let it mold you, let it build you, so that you can have strength to carry on. Because knowing that there was a lady once told me that you are here because you have a purpose, you have a reason why you're here. So these challenges you are facing are just challenges, a part of life. So take those challenges and bring them together with your strength, and then do what you have to do. Because if you're going to say, no, I'm struggling to get this, I can't have connection, I can't meet Dance, he can't hook me up with the whatever situation, then you are killing yourself. So make sure that those challenges, they build you. So that John Rashi, look, like, he had a mom, and that time was tough times. But he had to carry on for the sake of his daughter, his family. So same as the other person, you need to do the same. So yeah.
Tell me, and this is my final question. Tell me, what are you grateful for about being in the creative or art space? You can just mention 2 or 3 things that you're grateful for.
I'm grateful for being an artist. I'm grateful that I'm a creative. I'm grateful that I have people around me that I can connect with. I'm very grateful that I have people around me. That's one thing that I'm grateful for, that I have an opportunity to express myself emotionally. That whenever I'm down, I have a canvas, can paint, take out everything there. So yeah, grateful for that.
I like that you mentioned that, because I'm wondering if, I know men don't like talking. That's one thing. I've accepted it.
You keep getting it up,
right? And I think sometimes I've had to learn that a lot of times we expect men to express things or to resolve things the way that we express them as women. but I realized that you have your own tools, and those tools aren't necessarily wrong. It's just you do it differently. So I'm sharing my learning moment.
Sure.
And what I'm saying, I like that you have a way of expressing what you're feeling, and I'm wondering if that's something that someone else can benefit. You know, that would be cool if there was, like, if other people, maybe even if they're not great drawers, but I know you don't like talking, but maybe they like drawing. And how do you use that as a means to express, to pause, like what Denzil was saying, pause, take a step back, use that as a means of expression, even if you're not doing it as a means of money as well. Because I mean, obviously you're an artist, so people expect you to be putting those emotions on the page, but maybe it's a useful tool for other people, right? We stop expressing those parts of ourselves as we get older. Like I said, I got very serious and businessy, and I forgot that I was poetic. I forgot that I write. I forgot that I used to love singing, you know, so I had to go back to those parts of self so that they can be balanced, so that I can pause. And also doing things with your hands also really actually helps with your mental health. That's why some people enjoy gardening and all of that. So thank you for sharing that, Elliot. Denzil, what are you grateful for?
In the industry or just in general?
Being the art space.
Being the art space.
Being where you're at.
I think a few things, right? I'm grateful that I'm a part of history making in the Southern Hemisphere. Being the lover of history, and it's very important to be part of a cohort of people who actually document our times. If you can look at what the artists have done during the pandemic, I mean, we've seen our art industry skyrocket during the pandemic, and they were documenting these times, which is going to be spoken in 100 years. And just being part of that journey, being part of that group of people in Johannesburg who actually tell that story, I think that there's nothing I would have asked more. I've always loved reading books of history. I've always loved looking at the events which have happened in the world. And I've always asked myself, what am I going to contribute towards that? What is my name going to be said, like in 100 years, what people are going to say about my name? What have I done for our community? And being part of the community of artists, we actually contribute to our history, documenting our times, documenting what we live in through now, which is going to resonate over time. I think I'm just grateful for that. I don't think I would have asked for more. And of course, day to day, I see people coming in, being happy, being touched by paintings which South Africans do, taking them overseas and all of that I'm also grateful of. But overall, I'm just grateful that I'm part of this amazing history of South Africa.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Thank you. I'm grateful for you guys. Thank you for honoring the appointment.
Thank you.
This was a really good conversation. I hope it brings in more men to the podcast.
Let's hope so. We've carved our way into the podcast. We are the first one. Yeah.
Yes,
whoever comes afterwards.
You made your way into history.
Right.
So thank you for coming. Sure. I want to encourage all of you who are watching the podcast to follow Elliot on social media, to follow Denzils and Jo's as well on social media, and also really have a look at the art gallery. It's in Melville. If you like art, it's a really cool spot. So go check it out. They have a lot of exhibitions. And then also, Elliot, do you have any exhibitions coming up?
I'm planning on winter.
Okay.
In June. Yeah, so I'm still working on the paintings, the new product that I'm doing.
Okay, so please, so that you don't miss out on all of that, please do check them out on social media, follow them, engage with them, all of that stuff. And thank you for listening. I hope that this conversation really inspired you to express all the different parts of yourself, to just start like what both Elliot and Denzil said, to really just not fear the rejection and understand that disappointment is a part of life. We're all here creating, and I believe that we're all creative beings, to be honest. We create the life that we want. We were expressive beings, and we just need to find a place to put that energy, right? So thank you for watching, and thank you for joining us on the Living Consciously podcast. Remember to subscribe, like, follow, wherever you're listening to this.